Today I want to share a few tips on how I blend Country Chic paint. This French provincial dresser was part of a set that I had found going out on garbage day. I already worked on the first piece, so this is the second piece. As usual, I start my prep by taking off all of the hardware. And then I vacuum the insides of the drawers out because there's a ton of dust bunnies. I'm using my mouse sander to go over the previous finish where there's any chipping and just smooth it out. Then I use my TSB cleaner and I go over this entire dresser, the inside, outside, underneath, all of it, and just give it a really good scrubbing. When I finish cleaning, I take a damp cloth with water and I just wipe down any residue from my cleaner. Now for the top, I'm going to use Country Chic's paint in the color Soiree. I love this color so much. I have it on hand all the time because it's a really beautiful neutral. Usually I prime my pieces because of odors and tannins, but in this case, there are neither, so we don't have to prime. We are just laying down a base coat right now. Nothing fancy is happening yet. I just wanted to get some paint on the piece. My first tip for using Country Chic paint, and especially when you're blending, is make sure that your coats of paint are fully dry. So I give them at least an hour or two before adding another coat. This is a crucial step to avoid any pulling from your first coat. While I was cleaning my piece, I noticed that this little design plaque on the front was coming off. So I'm just gonna pull it right off. And it turns out that it's just a little plastic piece. I'm not a huge fan of this design, so I'm going to take out the little finishing nails and I'm gonna replace this design with a WoodUBend. I think switching this little design out will give this an instant upgrade. I'm using my heat gun to heat the WoodUBend up. It takes a few minutes and then the little WoodUBend becomes bendable. When it's nice and bendable, I can apply my Titebond wood glue and apply the WoodUBend to the piece. I hold it in place for about 20 seconds and then I grab my heat gun again and I just give it a nice blast with the heat. This helps it to dry faster and stick better. Heating it up makes it bendable again so that we can make sure every single inch is glued to the dresser. I'm done with the heat gun. I just press down one more time and then I can take my water mister and just get rid of all that excess glue. I just take a little chip brush and just brush it away. And then I wash my chip brush afterwards so I can use it again. Now to get back to painting the base, I want to finish with my first coat and I'm using Country Chic's paint in Ooh La La. I think this is going to be a really cute pink for this dresser because I'm thinking that this dresser is going to go in a child's room, and I say that because the drawers are so small. So whenever I see really small drawers, I know that it would be perfect for a child. Whenever I apply the paint, it comes up really light, but it does dry a little bit darker. So that's something to keep in mind. Right now it sort of looks like a pale pink, but when it dries, it has a little bit of an apricot tone to it. So now to sort of balance out that pink, I'm going to use Crinoline by Country Chic. It's a really, really white and it has a tint of pink, but honestly, I can never see that tint of pink. It just looks super crispy white to me. So this is still my first coat, but I do want to see how it's going to look. So just to give it sort of a practice round, I am putting the white in the middle and then Ooh La La on the edges. And I'm not going to like thoroughly blend it right now. I'm just sort of practicing to see, I don't know how it's going to go, and I just like to get the feel of the paint. Since I'm covering such a dark piece of furniture, I'm gonna have to add about 3 coats in total to this because I don't want you to be able to see, through. Since they're such light colors, it's gonna be a little bit trickier with my coverage. I could have added a white or gray primer, but I didn't want to. I have enough paint here, so doing 3 coats is really no big deal for me. I waited the full 2 hours and now I'm applying my second coat. My plan is to just add another coat of white to the drawer fronts. I don't use my water mister as often when I'm using Country Chic paint because it's clay based. When you use a lot of water, you can reactivate the previous coat. And we don't want to do that because we don't want to pull that coat off. I'm just careful when I'm using my water mister not to completely soak the paint. And here I got a little impatient because I love blending paint. So I just kind of wanted to have a little play. I'm still know that I'm going to do a third coat, but I just wanted to see how it was going to look. Then I continue going down the drawers with another coat of white. Now here, I don't want to confuse you, but for the sides, this is only 2 coats right now. I am going to show you how I blend the sides, and I want to give you a few more tips, but I did end up going in afterwards with my third coat. I just felt like when I was looking at it right now that it had really good coverage, so I wasn't going to add that third coat. But when I did finish it, I saw some areas that were lighter, so I ended up adding the third coat. So right at this moment, I'm just putting on paint. I haven't even started blending yet. I'm just adding the paint. And it is starting to dry, so I do use my water mister just to, get it a little bit wet so I can move the paint around. Now here's where I start that blend. And I'm taking my crinoline all the way out to all of the edges. If I took my crinoline and only went to where the pink paint started, I would have this harsh line and the paint wouldn't blend. My goal isn't to have white all in the middle. It's just to sort of blend the pink and the white together with a lighter middle. Now I have my white all over, so I'm taking my pink and I'm just refining the outer edges. And I'm blending again to make sure that, the pink is prominent on the sides, but there is no harsh line in going into the white. Now I go back with the crinoline and I'm just making sure that we're getting rid of any harsh lines. At this point, my paint is drying, so I need to add a little bit more water. So now we're getting to a point where I'm liking the way everything looks, but I have a lot of brush strokes here. So I need to knock those brush strokes off. And to do this, I'm gonna use a completely dry, soft brush. That's where this brush comes in right now. It's totally dry and really, really, really soft. So I'm just using, it's almost like as if I had a feather in my hand and I'm just using that feather to knock off the brush strokes. And while I'm knocking off the brush strokes, it's also helping to blend the colors together. It's not taking any paint off, but it's just moving it around a tiny, tiny bit. So that's my other big tip. If you're using Country Chic paint and you feel like you have a lot of brush strokes or you're getting a messy blend, you want to use that really soft synthetic dry brush and just smooth out your paint. I have a rag that I'm wiping the brush off just to make sure it stays dry. And now I want to show you how I apply the third coat and I blend the drawer fronts. I started with my Ooh La La first, and I'm just going on the very outer edges of the drawer fronts. And then I'll go in with my crinoline and start from the center and move outward. That way, I'm not starting the blend before I have the rest of it covered, because our paint's going to start drying really soon. So I want to do that middle part because I know that that's going to be, those are going to be the whitest pieces. So we'll just get a little bit of coverage on those. When I'm blending two colors, a light and a dark, that are similar, I usually follow this same pattern. I take the dark color and I paint the frame with the darker color, and then the insides get that highlight. It's just really appealing to the eye. And again, now that I like where my blend went, I'm going to take that dry brush and I'm going to knock down all the brush strokes. Every paint brand is different. They have different ingredients, so the consistency of the paint is different. So when you're blending, it's not all going to be the same process. Some are going to need more water, less water. Some don't need a dry brush, some need a dry brush. So you just kind of have to get the feel of it, and with more experience, you learn more. So it's just trial and error, really. And then I just continue down the dresser, blending all of the drawer fronts the same way that I blended the first one. Now to finish off the top, I'm going to use the color crinoline and I'm going to do a wash with a 50-50 mixture of paint and water. I chose Soiree as my base color for this wash because it's a little bit warm, just like how the pink is a little bit warm. So they go together. And then I want to use that crinoline so that it will balance out the drawer fronts. The drawer fronts are very white, so having the top white too, it'll just be, again, really appealing to the eye. I'm always looking for that balance. As always, I apply my wash in rows, and this time I'm going to do 2 rows, and I'm using a really soft rag to wipe it back. I want to leave a lot on there, so I'm not putting a lot of pressure on my hands. And I'm going to also use a second coat of the crinoline because I want it to match the drawer fronts. I don't want it to be the same. I want there to still be a variation, but I want it to be pretty close. And I wait 2 hours before I apply my second coat of wash. I'm not finished with this piece, but at this point I know that I'm finished painting, so I can top coat it. I'm using Country Chic's top coat and their 2-inch brush because that 2-inch brush covers a lot of area. And I am going to cover the entire piece, including the drawer fronts and sides. I add 2 coats of my top coat, waiting another 2 hours in between coats. I'm always doing washes on the tops of my pieces because I think it's gorgeous. Another big reason that I really love it is because it's super forgiving when you're adding your top coat. If you end up getting streaks, you can't even see them. Like if you have one after your first coat, then you just add your second coat and it's totally fine. The variations of colors on the top really camouflages any imperfections. So I love the wash. I cleaned off all my hardware really good with some Dawn dish soap, and then I used this metallic spray in gold. At this point, the piece is missing something. I knew I was going to use gold on the hardware, but now I'm building as I go along. I just know that it needs something extra. So I'm using Posh Chalk Pigments in pale gold. You just mix the powder with the pigment infuser. And I think that the infuser is like a sealer because you don't have to seal this. For some reason, my brain wasn't working and I shook the infuser jar. You don't want to do that because it'll cause bubbles. You just want to stir it. It didn't affect my piece in any way, but just for next time, I have to remember to stir it, not shake it. If it feels too thick, you just want to add some more of your infuser. And if it feels like it's too runny, then I add more of my pigments until I get that perfect gold. I love this stuff so much. You know, it's as bright and vibrant as gold leaf, but without the mess. Colors on this piece, it was gorgeous with the white and the pink, but something was just missing. And because this is a French provincial, we can get real fancy with it and it will just go. So adding the gold to the accents really just put it all together. And here I'm noticing that my spray paint on the hardware is a different color than the pale gold. So I just add that pale gold right over my hardware. I don't always find it easy to paint with pink. Pink is just one of those colors that it's like a hit or a miss. And I feel like if I didn't add all this gold, it would have been a miss. Adding all of this gold tones down that pink. Another great color would have been bronze. Bronze complements pinks so much, and it does, it tones it down. Whenever you're using really bright colors, especially pink, they tend to be really loud and they will steal the whole entire show of your piece, and people will only see, ooh, that's really pink, you know? So in order to balance it out, because we're always looking for that balance, I knew that I needed to add something more to it. And there's a few reasons why I chose the really light gold. If I had added a bronze to this, it just wouldn't have matched with this particular pink because the pink is so bright and light. Also, the French provincial style of the dresser itself is pretty fancy. So using the pale gold just sort of ties in the look. It doesn't look bizarre to have these fancy colors on a fancy dresser. It just really makes sense. I started painting this little crease gold, but when I took a step back and looked at it, I needed to paint the entire lip. And that's what I ended up doing in the end. And if you make any mistakes when you're applying this Posh Chalk Pigments, you can just wipe it up with a rag really quick. It's pretty easy to get up. And here's a reminder of what we started with. Here it is today. Check out that shine. The gold is shining and the crinoline shines. I think they're bouncing off of each other. I love the color combination on this piece. I think the colors are really complementing one another. If you would like to see what I did with the other piece from this set, I'll leave it right here. And if you enjoyed this video, I would love it if you hit the like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next week with another furniture makeover.